At the start of the month, I made a video trying to predict the entire Night of Champions 2025 match card. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to face the music. We're gonna find out just how bad my match predictions were for this year's Night of Champions. Now, I wanna make it abundantly clear that I made these predictions immediately after Money in the Bank ended and before the King and Queen of the Ring tournament brackets were even properly announced. So basically, what I'm trying to say is just be nice, okay? So we'll go through all of the matches that I predicted. We'll see how close or how far off I was and what WWE ultimately ended up going with. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know that you're gonna fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And don't forget, if you want more than just daily wrestling content, to come over to patreon.com/SantiZap, where you're gonna get so much more extra content like the Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews, and a whole host of extra videos that never get uploaded here to YouTube because they would just get blocked due to copyright. So come check it out. Link in the description, link in the pinned comment. Let's see how the predictions ultimately aged. All right, so let's start things off by talking about a match that I predicted that was supposed to be a precursor for something bigger, a bigger championship match at Evolution or maybe even SummerSlam. I predicted that we would get Eio Sky and Liv Morgan having their first match, which would then lead to a bigger match for the WWE Women's Championship at Evolution or SummerSlam. However, I predicted that their first match wasn't going to be for a singles title, but instead for the tag titles between Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan and Eio Sky and Kairi Sane. Here's the thing, I got portions of this right, but I'm still wildly off because I did ultimately end up predicting a feud between Eio Sky and Liv Morgan that indeed began. However, even without Liv Morgan's injury, obviously Liv Morgan's injury completely throws any predictions that I had involving Liv Morgan out the window, but even if Liv Morgan didn't get injured, I don't think that I was going to be right about this because I don't think it was going to be for the tag titles. I think at Night of Champions, they were legitimately going to do Eio Sky versus Liv Morgan for that WWE Women's Championship. The reason why I believe that is because they were still building Raquel Rodriguez versus Rhea Ripley separate from the Eio Sky and Liv Morgan saga. And ultimately, this ended up being one of the matches that they ended up doing. And I do think that this was a match that they maybe had in their back pocket, but either way, they were building this separately from everything going on between Eio and Liv Morgan, which tells me that this match that I originally predicted was probably never in the cards for Night of Champions. So I'm gonna get like 5% points here for just simply predicting that the WWE would finally ignite the feud between Eio Sky and Liv Morgan. Obviously, it's not gonna go anywhere anytime soon because of Liv Morgan's injury. So I'll say I'm like 95% wrong on this. Instead, we are getting Raquel Rodriguez versus Rhea Ripley. Eio Sky doesn't have a match, still doesn't have a premium match. I still don't understand how Eio Sky could be your women's world champion, be one of the best women's champion that you've ever had in terms of in-ring ability, and you just don't use her. Either way, we've got a street fight between these two. It's gonna be fun, but obviously it's missing a lot of the key names that I predicted in the previous match. The next match kind of bums me out because obviously I got it wrong, but I think I should have been right. I really feel that this is what WWE should have gone with. I predicted that we were gonna get a United States Championship match, obviously involving the United States champion Jacob Fatu. He would go into this show and defend it against Wepa Bing Bong Damian Priest. Why didn't they go with this? They actually teased this. They already set this up. Damian Priest did a whole ass promo talking about how he wants to fight the biggest dog in the yard and that dog is none other than Jacob Fatu. They've already set it up. Honestly, it was kind of perfect for Night of Champions. Instead, they ended up going with Jacob Fatu versus Solo Sikoa at Night of Champions, which is a match that honestly I'm significantly more excited for than this match right here because this match actually has a really strong, deep narrative, but it's a good enough storyline and a good enough narrative that I really thought that this should have been the SummerSlam match and that this should have been the Night of Champions match. Something tells me that they're going to end up doing Jacob Fatu versus Damian Priest at SummerSlam instead. And I just think that that's flat out wrong. They should have just done this at Night of Champions, a quick just match to just show off how badass Jacob Fatu is, to build him to this bigger match with bigger storyline, with bigger stakes, with a bigger spotlight against Solo Sikoa. But I think they're going to do this backwards. I think that this match, it probably won't happen at SummerSlam anymore. Maybe there's a possibility with people getting, called up, debuting Hikuleo, maybe the Tongans return that could further extend this feud all the way through to SummerSlam. But we know WWE loves Damian Priest, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is the match that they end up going with for the bigger show instead. But hey, at least I predicted that the United States Championship was going to be on there. And honestly, that should count for some points considering there's only 2 championships that are being defended on this show. And I predicted one of them. So yeah, US Championship, hoorah. All right, so the next match that I predicted, I got right. I just got it wrong on what night it ended up happening. I predicted that we were going to get United States champion Zelina Vega going up against Julia, and sue me for thinking that Night of Champions would have championship matches with champions on the card. Instead, the real Night of Champions happens the night before Night of Champions because this match is happening for the United States Championship. It's just not a Night of Champions. I'm off by 24 hours. So I'm taking points for this. I don't care, because we are indeed getting Women's United States Championship match between Zelina Vega and Julia. I'm definitely not bragging about predicting that we were eventually going to get this match, because by the time that I predicted this, the Zelina Vega and Julia feud was already well down the road. The snowball had already been pushed down the hill. But I thought that, hey, maybe they're willing, since it's Night of Champions, to put the United States Women's Championship on the card. Silly me for thinking that, right? Can I get like 50% points? Like literally, I guessed the match. I guessed the championship that was going to be on the line. I'm literally just 24 hours off. Dude, I even got the city right, all right? It's also going to be in Saudi Arabia and Riyadh, so please, give me some partial points here, folks. I am personally glad that this match is happening, whether it's here at Night of Champions or on SmackDown, predominantly because, and I feel so bad saying this, but Zelina Vega's United States Championship run has run its course, and it hasn't run its course in the way that she's done everything that she could do. It's run its course in the sense that clearly WWE doesn't want to do anything with Zelina Vega as United States Champion. So we might as well get a change of scenery, get a new champion. Maybe Julia can start from scratch, and maybe this United States Championship can someday hope to hold the jockstrap of the Women's Intercontinental Championship, because right now this thing is just a glorified drink coaster. And I do genuinely believe that right now the way to really reset this division, the way to really maybe bring some new life to it, is by putting the title on Julia, somebody that really is a blank slate for many main roster fans that don't know a lot about Julia. So as a blank slate champion, you can kind of create the identity of both the champion and the championship from scratch. They really just need to do something with this United States Championship. And by the way, I am recording this before the episode of Friday Night SmackDown when this match is set to take place. So, but this video is being uploaded after the match actually takes place officially. So I don't actually know who's champion by the time that you're seeing this. Maybe I'll just do like a really generic reaction, like, oh my God, can you believe that that woman pinned the other woman to become the champion of the United States for the first time? Or maybe the retaining? I don't know. Crazy. I don't know. All right, that was cringe. I'm moving on. One of the key things about Night of Champions, right before I created this video, like 2 days before, they announced that they were going to do the Queen and King of the Ring tournaments. However, they didn't tell us the bracket. They told us the bracket literally right after I made this video. So keep in mind that I made these finals predictions before the bracket was even announced. For the Queen of the Ring, I got like 50% right, okay? So I predicted that we were going to get Jade Cargill, who did end up making it to the Queen of the Ring final, going up against the Queen, Charlotte Flair. Now, WWE ended up going in completely separate directions with Charlotte. I really thought that Charlotte versus Jade made a lot of sense here, right? The one that is the self-proclaimed queen, trying to actually become the queen of queens in Charlotte Flair, and Jade Cargill being kind of like the next it thing. And in many regards, even if it sometimes kind of falls flat, WWE likes to put their next it thing, their next it woman in the main event scene up against Charlotte Flair. And I thought that this could be a great opportunity to do that for Jade Cargill, to build her up to be that main event it girl going into SummerSlam. I just couldn't have predicted the direction that they were going to go with Charlotte, which is a humbling losing streak, which is a kind of quasi friendship, whether it's an unwanted friendship or not, with Alexa Bliss. What I really genuinely did not expect was for Charlotte Flair to lose in round one. Round one. When the bracket got announced, I was like, oh, dude, I'm right. I got this bang on, because Charlotte and Jade Cargill ended up being on complete opposite sides of the tournament. So this final was actually a realistic final, like in structurally, like that's actually the final that we could have gotten had Charlotte actually won her matches. So when I saw that bracket, I saw saw them on polar opposite ends, I was certain that this was going to be the final. It just sort of seemed like perfect to me. Now, ultimately, they ended up going with Jade Cargill versus Asuka. I made this video before I even knew that Asuka was going to be part of this tournament. However, even when they announced Asuka to be part of the tournament with the tiny little graphic that they showed of her, I never would have expected her to actually go all the way to the final of the Queen of the Ring tournament. Mostly because the last time that she was part of the main roster, she was kind of getting jobbed out to Jade Cargill specifically in the tag team division. And even before then, they weren't really using Asuka all that well. So I didn't think that WWE had it in them to do one last big final Asuka push in the main event scene. And yet here we are. So I got 50% right. I still don't know how to feel about this final for the Queen of the Ring. I'm going into it with like a glass half empty kind of mentality. I'm being a little bit pessimistic about it. But hey, maybe this all of a sudden ends up being a barn burner, ends up being a fantastic match. But right now at face value, I don't know. I'm not completely convinced that these two are going to have great chemistry with each other in a singles environment. But then again, they had great chemistry in the tag team division. So maybe these two will actually tear the house down. I still think that the destination was always Jade Cargill, right? That's clearly what I thought here. And that's what WWE is thinking here. Even when I made this final prediction of Jade Cargill versus Charlotte Flair, I also had Jade Cargill winning the whole thing. I still have Jade Cargill winning the whole thing. I feel like WWE is going to be very simplistic. They're going to telegraph this victory a mile away. Jade Cargill is going to be our Queen of the Ring. Now on to the King of the Ring. Again, I want you to remember that I made this prediction before the bracket was even announced. I ended up predicting that we would have Cody Rhodes in the final, and we got that right. Cody Rhodes is indeed in the final, but the other finalist that I predicted was Sami Zayn. And honestly, dude, I wouldn't have hated this. I think this would have been a fire King of the Ring final, especially with this being in Saudi Arabia. That was, by the way, the big reason as to why I picked Sami Zayn to go to the King of the Ring final. My logic in that video was that I was thinking that Sami Zayn was going to win the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. So first, they would break the Saudi Arabian people's heart by having Sami Zayn lose in front of them at King of the Ring, only to then win like 8 months later at the Royal Rumble for their big payoff. Sami Zayn was on the opposite side of the bracket as Cody Rhodes. He lost in the semifinal to Randy Orton, so it was very much on the table. I was almost 100% right on this. They ultimately ended up going with Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton, which is obviously the significantly bigger match, but it's still, the fact that it was in Saudi Arabia, part of me really thought that they were going to run with Sami Zayn here. Now, when it comes to Sami Zayn, he's still on the show, so I'm going to take a little partial, half of a point for just at least predicting that he was going to be on the card, because he does have a match with Karrion Kross. Now that I couldn't have predicted. I did not think that they were going to give Karrion Kross a match at all in the month of June, let alone a PLE match against Sami Zayn in Saudi Arabia. Yet here we are. Similar to Jade Cargill, I always just thought that it was always going to be destination Cody Rhodes, that this was always supposed to be Cody Rhodes' moment, that this was always supposed to be Cody Rhodes' way to get back to the championship match against John Cena at SummerSlam. I think it's very clear as day that that is the match that WWE wants to do at their biggest SummerSlam ever. It's probably going to be the closer. It's probably going to be Cody Rhodes versus John Cena, WWE Undisputed Championship. Is it a boring choice? Sure. Is it kind of unnecessary? Yeah, he's already pinned Cena, and that alone should have probably gotten him a match at SummerSlam. But hey, WWE likes to make their baby faces work for it, and that's what they're doing here with Cody Rhodes. Now, in the predictions video, I predicted that Cody Rhodes was going to win the whole thing, and I'm sticking with that, even with Randy Orton being Randy frickin' Orton. But I do think that this is going to be the catalyst for an eventual Randy Orton heel turn and the eventual Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton feud that so many of us have been fantasizing about ever since Cody Rhodes stepped back into the WWE at WrestleMania 38. All right, so this next one, I can't even find any sort of partial points for. I predicted that, again, Night of Champions, that we would get championship matches. I predicted that Jey Uso would still be the World Heavyweight Champion going into this show. Again, I did this immediately after Money in the Bank, so I had no idea that he would lose his World Heavyweight Championship. And I predicted that he would defend it in a triple threat match against Logan Paul and against Gunther. Okay, so here was my logic, right? I thought that after everything that happened at Money in the Bank in the tag match, that Logan Paul would interfere in the World Heavyweight Championship match, making it end in a no contest and thus setting up this triple threat match. I don't know, maybe that was potentially in the books. We'll never know because Logan Paul had an injury at Money in the Bank, broke his leg or foot or something during that crazy springboard moonsault onto the table, onto Jey Uso, who we're talking about here. So we'll never know if he was meant to interfere. I don't know. Ultimately, we know how this story went. Gunther just ended up winning the World Heavyweight Championship. Jey Uso does not have the world title anymore. Logan Paul is taking time off, and Gunther isn't at Night of Champions because instead we live in the timeline where somehow Logan Paul doing this springboard moonsault may have landed us in Gunther versus Goldberg territory for Saturday night's main event for the World Heavyweight Championship. Okay, so literally 0 points. Nobody could have predicted this. Like the way that this sequence ended up playing out, no way that anyone could have predicted specifically Gunther beating Jey Uso and then going on to face Goldberg at Saturday night's main event instead of Night of Champions. Why isn't this championship at Night of Champions? Like, dude, come on. Like, first of all, Goldberg and Saudi, they go pretty well in terms of like the matches that he's had there in the past. And on top of that, the World Heavyweight Championship was minted at this very show in 2023, Night of Champions. So I feel like this championship is synonymous with this show in Saudi Arabia. But hey, Saturday night's main event in Goldberg is what we're going to get instead. And lastly, let's talk about the main event that I predicted. All right. So I predicted that we were going to get a WWE Undisputed Championship match between John Cena and R-Truth Ron Unalivings. I still don't know if YouTube will demonetize me for saying killing. So anyways, the reason I thought that this match was going to happen is kind of obvious because I made this right after Money in the Bank. The whole We Won Truth thing got R-Truth his job back in the WWE. He came back at Money in the Bank. He cost John Cena the tag match, which caused him to get pinned by Cody Rhodes. Bada bing, bada boom, match between these two for the Undisputed Championship at Night of Champions. Here's the thing. I was right that we got this match, but not entirely because we did end up getting R-Truth versus John Cena. It wasn't for the WWE Undisputed Championship, and it wasn't at Night of Champions. We ultimately ended up getting it at SmackDown. And I don't think genuinely I could have predicted this at all, considering we haven't seen a John Cena SmackDown match in I don't know how long. I really thought that his retirement tour were not going to include any like TV matches like we ultimately ended up getting between Cena and R-Truth. The match we ended up getting instead was a match that I've been wanting for a while. You guys already know ad nauseum. I said I wanted it for Money in the Bank. I thought that we might get it for a later show, but we ultimately ended up getting it for Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia, which is CM Punk versus John Cena, WWE Undisputed Championship. And I could have never predicted this because I always thought that CM Punk was like incredibly adamant about not going to work in Saudi Arabia based on his previous words about, the Saudi government. But here we are. People change their views. People change their opinions. So we are getting John Cena versus CM Punk at Night of Champions. I did, by the way, just see the press conference, and CM Punk has apologized to the people of Saudi Arabia and Saudi Arabia for everything that he said. But he's still going to get booed to Kingdom Come in that arena. John Cena is far and away going to be the favorite here. I'm glad this match is happening, but when I was making these predictions, there was just no way in hell that I was going to predict that this match was going to happen at Saudi Arabia. Punk has always been a pretty adamant guy when it comes to the things that he says. But hey, like I said, people change their opinions, people change their thoughts, and now this is the match that we're getting. And honestly, I don't hate it because this is a dream match for me, a dream rematch, I guess you could say. So I guess to recap, I got this match right, just got it on the wrong date for, the stipulation and like the stakes on the line. I was wrong, and we ultimately ended up getting John Cena versus CM Punk with the whole role reversal with the pipe bomb being cut by John Cena. It's been really, really good stuff. Anyways, I mean, I've had worse predictions. That wasn't ultimately like that terrible. Like the World Heavyweight Championship one, that was objectively terrible. I'll admit that one. I'll cop to that. But anyways, guys, don't forget that we will be watching Night of Champions together as a community here on the YouTube page. So if you want some friends to watch it with, please come on by. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Goodbye. Get out of here.